The materials and tools that we will be using for this stitch along is a G7 4.5 millimeter hook. And I'm using some gold yarn. This is by Red Heart, the Super Saver, in the weight of 4. Multiples in our pattern is going to be of 6. So let's start with our chain. Now please note that with the multiple of 6, that means you can make it however wide you would like to make it, or however narrow you would like to make it. If you like this pattern enough to make a blanket, all you have to do is increase the numbers of multiples. So let's start off. Here's 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Continue adding 2 or 3 more sets of 6, and I'll meet you there. At the end of the choice of multiples of 6 that you have made, increase it by 2. Skip our first chain, and in our second chain, place 1 single crochet. Then chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to count over 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and in that third stitch we're going to place a V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in the same stitch. Chain 2, and we're going to skip 1, 2, and into the third one a single crochet. And this is what we have so far. Single crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that same stitch, chain 2, single crochet after skipping the 2 stitches and into the third on each case. So let's continue on. Chain 2, 1, 2, and into our third one, double crochet. This will be our V-stitch. We're repeating what we just did the first time. Chain 2, and double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 2, one, 2, and into our third stitch, single crochet. So we've repeated our pattern once. I'd like for you to continue on and repeat to the rest of the row. Your single crochet will end in your very last stitch. So after my last chain 2, I want to put a single crochet in that last stitch. So here's 1, 2, and our third one, and single crochet. And this completes our row 1. So moving on to row 2, let's chain 3 and turn our work. We're going to skip this chain 2, and in our double crochet of our V-stitch, we're going to take everything and fold it so only our V-stitch shows, and we're going to put a puff stitch. So yarn up, stretch that loop right here, over, yarn up again, over, and yarn up again the third time. Once you have all those loops on your hook, you want to go through them all except for the very last one. Drop your loop, yarn over, and through all of them, and that'll lock it up. Okay, then you want to take what you folded and bring it back. So here's our chain 2, here's our V-stitch. So in this chain 2 right here, we're going to place 3 double crochets, chain 1, slide your work a little bit, and 3 double crochets. Okay, so you can see how your puff stitch is right there in front on your V, and in that chain 2 you have those 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. Now we're going to do the other side of that V stitch. That's going to hold our puff again. So take your work here and fold it back so that only that double crochet shows. Yarn over, go under that double crochet and bring up a loop. Make your loop here a little long. Yarn over, go through there again. Remember to keep that loop long. Another yarn over and bring up that loop. And once you have all of those loops on the hook, yarn over and through all of them but the very last one. Okay, so now we're going to yarn over and go through those 2, and that'll lock that up. So this is what we have so far. We have a little puff, our double crochets, and a puff. So the V-stitch will have a puff on each one of those double crochets. We're going to skip the chain 2, the single crochet, and the chain 2, and we're going to go directly into that next V-stitch. So take both of those and fold it back and bring that V-stitch up, or that double crochet of that V-stitch up, and we're going to make another puff. Yarn over, drop your loop, remember to stretch it a little, yarn over, drop another loop, we got 2, yarn over, and here's our third one. Now if you notice that sometimes I place my finger on top of these loops, that helps hold it to maintain the size that we need when making that puff stitch. Bring your hook through. You notice how I had it aiming down and bringing it through, just those loops. Keep the last one, and then yarn over and through the last 2. Snug it up if you need to. Now take what we folded down in the back and let's bring it up. And here's your chain 2. Okay, here's all the stuff from the first row. Okay, so the chain 2 between the V-stitch, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, all on that chain 2. Okay, and this is the other side of our V-stitch. So take everything and fold it down, turn your work, twist it just a little bit, yarn over, go under that double crochet and pull up a loop. I'm placing my fingers on top of it again. Yarn over, pull up another loop, yarn over, and pull up the loop for the 3rd time. I'm going to take my hook and go over it, aim it down, and pull it through those loops, and then yarn over through those last 2 and snug it up a little. And then I'm going to bring my work forward so everything's still here, and then we're going to be moving on to do the same thing again. I'm going to show you one more time so that way when you have to do it the last few times, that'll give you the confidence to go ahead and do it on your own. So we're going to skip the chain 2, skip the single crochet, skip the chain 2. Here's our V-stitch right here. So with that double crochet, we want to fold everything back so only that double crochet shows. Okay, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, number 2 loop, yarn over, and number 3 loop. Yarn over through all those loops except for one, yarn over, and snug it up a little. And then what you had in the back, bring it forward, and our chain 2 between our V-stitch, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. Okay, and this is what we have so far. I still got one more puff stitch to do. I hope the camera is showing you how nice this really is. It's a nice textured stitch. Now if you wanted to make a scarf or a blanket, this would really be pretty. And once we get more into the pattern, you're going to see how comfortably warm this is going to be as well. So let's move on to the other side of our V-stitch. So we're going to take our work, fold it, and turn it just a little. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to turn it a little to the left. Yarn over, draw up our loop, yarn over, draw up our loop, yarn over, and our 3rd loop. And then yarn over through all those loops, except for the last one, and snug it up. Okay. I have 2 more to do. So I did a total of 5. So I'm going to skip these 2, skip the single crochet, skip the chain 2, and we're going to go right into this V-stitch right here. And that'll be our first puff stitch. Right here will be the 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and then right here will be that second puff stitch like this right here. So I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and do what we just did to complete your row. If you get stuck, go back a little bit on the video and that'll help you again. But I think you can do it. That's what these stitch alongs are for, is to teach you how to do it. All right, go ahead and finish this and I'll see you in just a second. Please pause your video. So at the end of our row, remember the single crochet when we first started after our chain? We're going to place a double crochet right into the top of it. This completes row 2, and I wanted to point out we have one, the chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and the double crochet, so you have one on each end. This is row 2 of our repeat. We have 2 more rows, and then we will start our repeat all over again. So let's move on to row number 3. So let's move on to row 3. You're going to find the nice thing about each one of these rows is one row has a lot of the work and another row is just a real simple quick row. So what we're going to do now is we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The first 3 will act as 1/2 of the V-stitch and the chain 2. Now let's turn our work, and in our first stitch here we're going to place a double crochet. So this is what we have for our beginning of row 3. Now we're going to chain 2, and over these double crochets where we had the one chain, we're going to place a single crochet. Chain 2. Now in between our puff stitches from the other side, or in between the scallop here, you have an opening. You'll see your single crochet. We'll go above it, and in this hole right here we're going to place a V-stitch. So it's double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Moving on, chain 2. I'm going to skip those 3. Here's our chain 1, single crochet, chain 2. Okay, so our scallop came down, starting another one. Right here is where our V-stitch is going to go. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 2. I'm going to go over the 3 and single crochet. Okay, you can see how easy that is so far. So what I'd like for you to do is continue on. Remember to chain 2. Our next is our V-stitch, and then I have 2 more scallops. Go ahead and finish that, and I'll meet you after you do your last single crochet here before we end this row. So here we are at the end of the row. Single crochet, chain 2. Now right here in our last stitch, which actually is the top of the chain 3, we're going to place a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And you can see that's like a V-stitch, like what we have on this side. All right. Chain 3, and we'll start our next row, which will be chain 4, which will be the last of our repeat. So let's turn our work. And in this chain 1 space right here, we're going to place 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. It's kind of like finishing the scallop, because that's what we're going to do next. We have our V-stitch, so we have to do our scallop. We're not scalloping here. No scallop there. This one, okay, we're going to scallop on this one because we're on this side. So take this end and fold it down, and take the rest, fold it down, turn your work a little bit, and on that double crochet, go ahead and place a puff stitch. Yarn over and draw up your puff or your loop. Okay, and this is also where you want to try and maintain a loose tension when doing these puffs as well. Okay, and then open your work back up. We have our chain 2 and our single crochet, and if you remember from our first row, we skipped this. Okay, skip that chain 2, and into our next V-stitch, you can see a puff going to the center. So here's our V-stitch. I'm going to fold all that down. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then here we have our chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1, slide your work on that chain 2, 3 more double crochet. All right, so here's the other side of that V-stitch. So let's fold our work down, grab that V-stitch and pivot our work just a little bit, and let's do our puff stitch on it. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, can you kind of see the crisscross here? All right, so I'm going to get you started on the next one because I think you have the puff stitch part down good. So here we got our chain 2, our single crochet, and chain 2. We skip over all of that, and what it does is kind of helps pull our stitching to that single crochet. So let's do our puff stitch on our next V-stitch leg of that double crochet. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And then we have our chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. And here's our last puff right here. Let's go ahead and fold our work. Makes it easier when you fold it. If you can do your puff without folding it, I encourage it. But for me, I find it's easier. Okay? So, we've gotten this far. I would like for you to go ahead and finish the rest of your row, and I'll meet you here. And if you want to jump a little bit ahead of me, remember what I showed you on each one of the rows, how they all had the same finishing as well as when you started? So if you can figure this one out, you'll know what goes here on the end. So go ahead and finish this. I know you can do it. Please pause your video and I'll see you in just a second. So as you can see, I'm at the end of my row and I have that one leg that we need to put a puff on. So let's fold these down, put our puff on. All right, now what's left of this initial chain 5, we're going to place 3 double crochets, because if you remember right, we had to chain up 3 and place 3 double crochets on the first of this row. So here's our 3 double crochets. Now count up 1, 2, 3, and in that third one we're going to place another double crochet, and that'll help lock it in from sliding over. Okay, so this completes row 4, and can you see the X in the pattern here? I think it is a really nice pattern. Let's continue on. I'm going to show you how to start row 5, which will be the first of basically just doing row 1 again. Let's move on. All right, so let's chain 1, turn our work, and in this first stitch right here, we're going to place 1 single crochet. See, you got your 3 as if this was the chain 1, okay? And then we have our separation as you come down of your scallop. You have in between, okay? That's where our V stitch is going to go. But before we do that, we have to chain 2, do our V stitch, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the same space, chain 2, and just like we did on row 2, I believe, or row 1, instead of having to count, we already have everything ready for us. We have an opening, we have an opening. So continue across, and I'll show you how to start the next row of our stitch along here. So at the end of this, which is considered row 5, but it's actually row 1 in our pattern, we're going to go ahead and place a single crochet in the top of that chain 3, and that completes this row. So we started with a single crochet, we ended with a single crochet. So the next thing we're going to do is chain 3, turn our work, and this will be row 2 of our repeat, and you can already tell where we're going to go from here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go into is we're going to make our puff stitch, 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, and it'll continue on. I'm going to go ahead and get you started, and I hope that you found that this was easy enough for you to do, and hopefully you'll make something from it. I love this pattern. I plan to use it again. I'm going to change it just a little bit, and I plan on making a purse from it. So hopefully you'll come back and join me in that tutorial. I'm also in the process of I'm working on a shawl. It takes a little bit longer when you start doing other things. But I do hope you plan to come back. Oops, I did it again, didn't I? In my practicing, I would immediately do a double crochet instead of a puff. I hope you don't do that. So here's our puff. I'm so used to doing double crochets. Anyway, I hope you come back. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'm going to stop right here. This is row 2, and you can already tell what you're going to be doing. So I hope you come back and see what else I have to offer. Maybe we can make something for Christmas. Have some ideas that somebody will be really impressed with. Let me see if this is a new camera for me, so I'm hoping that it works well. It's kind of hard to tell. I bought the GoPro Hero 7. I love GoPro because I can bring things up really close and it stays in focus, or I can bring things back. So I'm going to stop right now. I hope this stitch along helped you and inspired you to do something. That's what these stitch alongs are for. And I appreciate you spending your time with me. Thank you so much, and please come back. So until next time, happy crocheting.